So I'm not a big theme park person. I'm sort of aware of theme parks in the periphery. I think the last time that I went to a theme park was probably like the early 2010s. I went to Legoland. But recently I made my first theme park visit in almost 15 years. I ended up going to Universal Studios Hollywood specifically to go to one new area that they had added to the park in the past couple of years. That's right, Super Nintendo World. Now, I've been passively interested in Super Nintendo World since the Japanese park opened in 2021. In the past couple months, an opportunity came up where I was able to go. So this video is going to be me talking about Super Nintendo World, a basic outline of the park, some nerdy minutia, some B-roll sprinkled in here or there. Now, I want to be upfront here. This is going to be much more from a casual theme park person's perspective because I'm not a hardcore theme park person at all. The most hardcore I am is like watching Defunctland every once in a while. But if you want like a more hardcore theme park person's perspective, go watch another video. Now, like I said earlier, I specifically went to Universal Studios Hollywood because it is the park that is the closest to where I am. However, the problem with specifically going to Hollywood is that it does not have any of the Donkey Kong stuff like the Japanese park or Epic Universe has. So I'm not going to be talking about any Donkey Kong stuff in this video either. Now, on planning this park trip, I really didn't have any idea of how big the crowd sizes we were going to get on the day that we were going. So I ended up deciding to get the early attendance pass for specifically Super Nintendo World that lets you into the park an hour early, and the Universal Express Pass that allows you to bypass the lines. The Universal Express Pass specifically was actually a really fantastic choice because I was able to ride all the rides in the park with no problem, even with like multiple of the rides being shut down for repairs during the day. So I was able to hit up everything in the park and still had like an hour and a half left before the park closed. Now, I went to the park on a Sunday and I was actually very shocked that there were very, very few people in the park in the morning. It got way more busy in the afternoon, but the morning specifically, I'm like, wow, I've never seen a theme park this empty before. And it almost kind of rendered the Universal Express Pass pointless because there were so few people in line. In fact, I was expecting the lines to be so long and regular that I actually ended up bringing my Nintendo Switch with me just to have something to do in line to keep me engaged. You know what game on my Switch I actually ended up playing? That's right, Mario Wonder, just to be thematically fitting, of course. But seriously though, I did play Mario Wonder just to do some like post-game cleanup, do a bunch of the special levels that I never got around to when I initially beat the game about a year ago. Now, one weird observation that I specifically would only notice is that I think I was the only person that was playing Switch that day in the park. So right as the park opens, me and the other person that go on this trip with head straight to Super Nintendo World because I wanted to get footage of Super Nintendo World and just play all the stuff before it got too crowded and crazy. So upon entering the park, there's this big vending machine that dispenses these power-up bands. These are NFC devices that you can use in different parts of the land to interact with the different minigames to keep track of your score. The Power Band also has a secondary function in that it also acts as an amiibo of the corresponding character that you get with it, which is a fantastic solution to a problem, sort of expensive theme park trinkets like this, and that they become basically useless outside the park, so they just kind of sit in your closet gathering dust or whatever. But the fact that it is also an amiibo at least allows you to squeeze out just a teensy little bit of extra functionality out of it once you spent all this money on it. So the first thing I do going into Super Nintendo World was I decided to do the smaller challenges first before getting on the Mario Kart ride. Now, these smaller challenges much more resemble like Mario Party mini games rather than anything else. And in a certain way that's kind of cool. There's the clock mini game where you have to hit all of these clocks within a certain amount of time. There's one where you have to try to hit a shell to reach a block. There's one where you have to spin a thing to, make sure yeah. These little mini games are fine. They can keep like a young kid engaged. And they do definitely make the land not just feel like a over-glorified queue for just a Mario Kart ride, but I kind of wish there was like a bunch of things like this. Like maybe like 10 of these things would have been really cool. But obviously, considering the little space that they did have, that obviously wasn't realistic. Now, I want to take a second to talk about the Mario aesthetic of the park because I find it like a little bit interesting how everything is kind of divided up and how things are represented in the park in general. The overall Mario aesthetic in the park is very like generic Mario, New Super Mario Brothers kind of style, with the most like generic, most popular in all the games kind of characters, right? Mario, Luigi, Princess Peach, that kind of deal. You could say that maybe at best it's taking heavy influence from 3D Land and 3D World, since some of those enemies do appear in other versions of the park. There really are very, very few references to specific games, that it is just an amalgamation of Mario's universe overall, which obviously is a good choice for a theme park design perspective, that you just have a Mario aesthetic and you don't have all these disjointed elements representing individual games. The two specific references to games are the paintings from Mario 64 in the entrance area to the land, and then also like this cool little Easter egg of like 8-bit sprites from Super Mario Bros. 1 when you tap your power-up band on this wall. The other huge presence in Super Nintendo World was Mario Kart specifically, very much inspired by the Mario Kart 7, Mario Kart 8 aesthetic. And finally, that last 5 to 10% of what makes up Super Nintendo World was actually Yoshi representation, interestingly enough. Not really in any of like the park queues or anything like that, but mostly in like merch. Walking through the merch stuff, you would see like a little bit of Yoshi specific stuff in the various like places you could buy things. Part of the reason why Yoshi had a surprisingly big presence at this park was because Yoshi was appearing as an exclusive character for like the Universal Fan Fest nights, like a night-only exclusive character you had to pay extra to stay at the park to go see. Now listen, man, I adore Yoshi. I think he's a nice, cute little dinosaur, but considering what they were charging for Fan Fest nights, the day I went, I think it was like $74 to get a couple of extra hours in the park just to meet Yoshi. And I was like, oh no, Yoshi ain't worth $74. No way. And finally, let's talk about the main attraction of Super Nintendo World, really the only ride in the Hollywood version, Mario Kart Bowser's Challenge. This ride is a very interesting mix of practical sets with augmented reality. You're given this visor that you can see other game characters on, so other riders in carts like Bowser and the Koopalings, etc. You look in a certain direction to fire your green shells, and your goal is to take out as many Koopalings as possible before the ride is over. Now, I don't know if the ride is particularly good at actually explaining the game mechanic of like using the visor to look around yourself to aim, but I picked up on it pretty fast as somebody who plays video games a lot. What's really cool about this ride is the practical aspect of it. That yes, the augmented reality racers and shooting stuff at them is like a normal video game, but it is real practical sets around you, and you can feel gusts of wind blowing on you and stuff, and you can really feel like you're in these real places and stuff. So it really takes that Mario Kart gaming experience to sort of a new level, that it really immerses you in the Mario Kart experience. Maybe the gameplay isn't as good as a regular Mario Kart, but at least the immersiveness, since you're in a real location, is higher. It creates for a really immersive Mario Kart experience, unlike anything that you can get in a regular gaming experience. Now, as for the merch stuff related to Super Nintendo World, man, they had merch for this thing everywhere, but I don't know, man. I think I'm not the target demographic for the kind of merch that they were selling. I did end up getting this hat that you're seeing me wear right here, this Player One hat. It's got a cool aesthetic. It's Super Mario Bros. 1. I like the color. Under the brim of the hat, you can see various Mario 1 enemies. There was a decent variety of stuff to buy, plushes, keychains, like little posters, metal plaques, etc. But as someone who's like an adult Nintendo fan, none of it really particularly appealed to me. I think the merch that would be a bit more my speed is the stuff in the Nintendo stores in New York and San Francisco. One huge missed opportunity I thought from the merch perspective is that it only was Mario stuff. There wasn't any Zelda stuff at all, or even Pokemon, which I for sure would have thought been a lock for a Super Nintendo merch thing. But all in all, considering how long I spent in the park, I didn't go to the Toadstool Cafe, I didn't go into the little Bowser Jr. Minions quest, but I did do a lot of stuff. I think I spent about like an hour and a half in Super Nintendo World, meaning that the amount of time that I am spending shooting this video right now is probably about the same amount of time that I actually spent in that park. Now, would I recommend Super Nintendo World within Universal Studios Hollywood? I would say yes, but with a caveat, that I do think that you need to moderate your expectations going into Super Nintendo World. That is not going to be the end-all be-all of your theme park visit. That it is one small part of a much larger park. In fact, what I found the most fun at Universal was everything outside of Super Nintendo World, because I really didn't know all that much about the park aside from Super Nintendo World. And I was very surprised riding some of these rides, and that really increased a lot of the fun for me. The best ride that I went on at Universal was actually Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey. I didn't know that there could be theme park rides that intense that were not roller coasters. The best way I can describe Forbidden Journey is there is this Disney ride called Soarin', and I remember going to it in the 2000s. So what they did was they had you on like a set of chairs, lifted you up, and had a big screen in front of you. So like, oh, you're soaring over all of these different places, right? Harry Potter and the Forbidden Journey is that times like 1,000. Like, you do a similar kind of thing in front of screens, but they move you throughout this like show building with all of these practical sets and screens, and you just get like such an adrenaline rush going through. Also, shout outs to the Jurassic World water ride. Just an incredible experience. The animatronics in that are so fantastic. Like, they are so insane that when I was looking at the Dominus Rex, I'm like, that's a real dinosaur for all I care. And like, it could pick me up out of my ride and eat me if it wanted to. Okay, what else? Oh, the Secret Life of Pets ride. Very, very underrated. It's like a show ride where you really aren't doing anything, but there's just so many fantastic animatronics and like bringing to life of all of these CGI characters. I've never seen Secret Life of Pets, but I really have a lot of respect for this ride in particular because there's a lot of love and care and craft put into like all of the set pieces and the decorations and making things look detailed and beautiful. So anyways, guys, that's it for the video. What do you guys think about Super Nintendo World and Universal Studios in general? Comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Like this video so it can proliferate more in the algorithm. Hit subscribe if you want to see more videos from me in the future. Anyways, that's it, and have a good day.